Hello everyone, greetings from London. As promised, here's the video showing my Portuguese army. Started off as a couple of brigades, ended up being probably, well, a little bit larger than I had intended. So, let's crack on. Let me start with the line infantry. As you can see, we got some guys in here. I'm struggling to give them proper lighting, please bear with me. There you go, now you guys can see them well. Minis Wipe and Draken, 10 mil. I've given them an English sergeant, as you can tell, to reflect how sergeants and officers from the British Army were often involved in the reforming of the Portuguese Army during the Peninsular War. Let me show you them from their backs, as you can see. Okay, they are very fine sculpts from Pendragon, nothing to declare really. They are very similar in terms of sculpt to the Redcoat. So if you are used to the Pendragon Redcoat, figures, these are very similar. It's just that you're gonna paint them blue rather than paint them red. But other than that, they're very similar. The flag, if you're wondering, is also from Pendragon. They have also a good set of flags for 10 mil, so honestly can't complain. And the guys we're seeing at the moment, they are number 5, which on my list at that's the 1st battalion of the 15th infantry. That's why they're carrying the regimental colors. Now, the way it was at the time, if I understand correctly, what would happen is that each regiment was comprised of 2 battalions, like these guys you see here. Let me just center them a bit so you can see them properly. There you go. Pardon, I seem to have quite a bit of a cold recently. So there you go. That's number 4. So the 1st battalion, the 2nd battalion would carry the regimental colors, as you can tell, whereas the 1st battalion would carry the king's colors. Okay, so there you go. So picture your British regiment or British battalions who would carry both into battle. In the Portuguese army, they were split. Now, for your king's colors, they would be one of 3 colors, either red, white, or yellow, depending on which. I believe they were called at the time divisions, if I'm not mistaken. Which was how the Portuguese army split basically its battalions geographically. So you could either be from the south, center, or north of Portugal. Anyway, too much history, too many details, and not enough minis. Let's get back to the minis. I have 2 more to show you. These guys here, which as you can see have a white colored flag. You might see that I've also given these guys a British sergeant, and then I did the same thing for this last unit that I want to show you. There you go, ready to focus. Perfect. There you go. Let me fix the light a bit. And as you can see, I mean, not much to tell other than I've given them different colors for their trousers just to give it the usual campaign look. I think we all do this when you want to show that your little men have been through a couple of battles and seen the elephant a few times, so you basically paint their trousers in more than one color, more than the standard color. Okay, so that's about it for line infantry. I'm going to show you light infantry again now. All light infantry at the time were grouped into Caçadores battalions. There were no light infantry regiments as we would recognize them, except for one thing called the Loyal Lusitanian Legion at some point, but I have not painted those dudes, so you're not going to see them. Now, I painted 3 battalions. Let me just make sure these guys come into focus. There you go. And as you can see, they are slightly, sorry, getting these guys into line. There you go. They're very similar to rifles in their appearance. That's because their uniform was actually based off the rifles one. If I'm not wrong, if I'm wrong, for sure someone's gonna prove me wrong in the comment section. And they are brown. You can see that their uniform is brown. This was at the time, according to some sources I recall reading many years ago, based on Austrian Jaegers from the time that led to the selection of brown. I guess probably the idea was to pick a color that was not too conspicuous, but at the same time wasn't green, so they weren't mistaken for British rifles. So I guess that makes sense. From a gaming point of view, as far as I know, if you're playing early Peninsula, you should consider that these guys have muskets. If you are playing late Peninsula War, you can assume they have rifles as well. Because what happened over time was that by the end of the Peninsula War, as Wellington's army went into France, all of these guys had rifles just like the English. Pardon, the British. Cool, so that covers all of the infantry that I wanted to show you. Let me show you some artillery and also their limbers. The minis are quite simple. I only painted one battery because in practice I don't believe there was a lot of let me put this guy in a different position so you can see both. There wasn't a lot of artillery going around within the Portuguese army at the time. That is because when Portugal was invaded, most of the army was carried off into Napoleon's campaigns in Europe, meaning that most of the artillery, as well as pretty much all the horses, were gobbled up and taken. That's why I have only painted one artillery, as either way, the Peninsula War, there was a constant shortage of both artillery and the horses, which is the next thing I'm going to show you, and that is reflected in my collection as you are about to see. Cool, good. Next thing is the limbers, because these cannons aren't going anywhere, and here Pendragon did something very interesting, as you can see, and I'm going to put these guys backwards so you can see both sides of the same mini. There you go, and you can see that they're pulled by donkeys, and once again this is exactly to reflect that shortage of horses that I was just telling you about. I think it was a smart decision by Pendragon. Gives it a bit more flavor. I actually think that the donkeys look quite awesome, I'm not gonna lie. I found it super funny when I saw it. And it helps distinguish it on the table, helps bring more character to the Portuguese army as well, just to make the allies look a little bit different. Otherwise, at the end of the day, they would all look the same. So I think it was a good idea. I think it reflects well the shortages that the Portuguese army had to deal with at the time, and I was quite happy with it. Last but not least, and here once again I've only painted two. I've tried to reflect that shortage, in this case shortage of horses. That's why I've only painted two squadrons of Portuguese cavalry, both of them light cavalry. I haven't seen any historical evidence for Portuguese heavy cavalry at the time. If any one of you has, please feel free to shout out in the comment section. I am not a historian, I can assure you of that. I wish I was. But long story short, this is what I've decided, okay? So painting only two squadrons, reflecting the shortage of horses at the time. As you can see, they use tarlatan hats, which was very common in Portugal at the time. They were not using bicorns as far as I know. Right at the same time, also the British cavalry was also changing their headgear. And out of curiosity, you are seeing cavalry regiment number 11, identified by their light blue colors, and there we go, here the 6th Cavalry Regiment from Oporto with their red colors, as you can see. So yeah, that's it for my Portuguese army. They look really, really nice on the tabletop, especially when you put them side by side with the Brits. You get that really cool red and blue mix facing off the French. As you will see, I try to paint not only the French but also the other nations within the French Empire at the time, to make it look as diverse as possible. So when we go into the French unit, you will see that. So that's about it, guys. We are now at the 10-minute mark, so I guess it's time to say goodbye. Next video will be on command stands. Cheers, bye bye.